Welcome back to Automotive. This episode is going to be, well, squaring up the ass of the Chevelle, which, well, should be interesting. I don't exactly have a good way at the moment holding the trunk up where I want it. This piece, the bottom of the rear window, needs a little bit of love. These flanges on the outside are kind of wonky. They're a little bent out, which is forcing quarters out further. The other fun part, I think I need to also go through and I'm going to measure the trunk, as in trying to figure out how much is hanging over each side and squaring the trunk up, getting the trunk hard mounted, so fully bolted in place tightly. I won't be welding it in place yet, although I probably could. So that's going to be coming in here and kind of measuring it off of the frame to see if I have it correct or not. Rear deck is still floating. That's fine. She's going to be floating for a while. But my goal for this video is to kind of tack these corners and these corners in place on the quarter panels so that the back is squared up. Yeah, get those kind of hard mounted in place. After that is done, I don't know what to do next. I don't know if I should then switch over to doing the trunk. If I can just do the roof, maybe do both of them in the next episode. I don't know. The roof is going to be a little bit extra work because once that's mounted on, then I'm going to be removing the gutters and getting that welded down. Damn, this is a gnarly project. Kind of bit off more than I can chew, but I'm getting there, right? Main thing is just one part at a time. So I have a lot of parts, right? So I've got the 2 quarters. There's this part that goes on the trunk that attaches under the quarters, right? So I want to get those mounted properly, at least to the best of my ability. And then I want to get this guy in place. Yeah, I'm overwhelmed tonight. I don't have as much energy as I'd hoped, but you know what? I need to work on this damn thing because I want her on the road, you know? And this is by far the biggest part of getting this stupid thing on the road. Plus, it's cool. I've got more motivation looking at a full body. I'm just, man, my ADHD brain kicks in and I get paralysis and I'm just sitting here staring at the damn car for an hour like, what do I do next? Cool. How do I do that? No clue. Just do it. So, you know, don't forget to like this video if you're enjoying watching me struggle bus the hell out of this car. Subscribe if you want to watch the road to completion. There's going to be a day where I'm going to have this damn thing on the road and hopefully doing drag and drives. Completely different goals for the 39. So, you know, another reason to subscribe is to see what I plan on doing with that one day. And by one day, I mean I really want to start it the summer of 2025. I say it that way because I'm currently shooting this the week before Thanksgiving, but you guys won't see it until probably January. So I say it weird, but you know, that's kind of the goal. And with that, enjoy me struggle busting this. Let's get to work. All right, let's get started by measuring side to side and side to side and side to side again. So trying to make this flow for a video was interesting, but essentially I'm going through and I'm loosening up all the bolts just to make sure that they're loose enough that I can shift the trunk side to side. Because when I did originally install it, I tightened them enough that if I fell into the trunk, it wouldn't shift. So off goes the trunk lid as I prepare to do more measuring. Now, squaring up the back is, of course, very important, right? You don't want the tail to go sideways, mainly for looks, right? This isn't going to affect anything but looks at the end of the day. And as you can see, now I can shift it side to side, and I'm trying to find good points of measurement, right? Something consistent both sides, which for some of the geometry is actually kind of difficult. It's not like you have the perfect flat mark that's symmetrical on both sides, right? You have similar features and you do have spots that you can hit. They're not always ideal, which is why I spent so long measuring side to side, was to basically do my best and making sure that, you know, we're on point. And I'm kind of fighting the need to buy a laser level at this point because, well, why do things the easy and smart way when you can just waste a whole night with the tape measure? So going up by the wheel hubs, still hitting the same marks on each side. So there is a lip around the trunk that is flat, and that does go front to back, and that's kind of what I'm using as my measuring point. And then I'm going through and I'm measuring that to the fender, but then I'm also measuring it to the frame, right? So the frame I'm assuming is square, right? For everything I can tell, there's never been any frame damage, so if I can square everything off of the frame, then my thought process would be that it is square. So that is what the whole project is. And yeah, I cut a decent amount of this because, as you can tell, it's kind of boring, just me going back and forth. So I'm at a point that I like after a half hour or so of measuring. Go through and tighten everything up, make sure that the trunk's not shifting at all. But this is just the bottom, right, just the trunk floor pan that is squared up at this point. And of course, after tightening, you want to go through and verify again and make sure that nothing shifted during that point. Now, kind of pop the little spacer in, and then I get the trunk lid on. This was, I don't know, kind of a waste of time now that I look back on it. Basically because, well, it's not like I have any latches in place. I don't have the trunk guard, like nothing is keeping the trunk in there, so I'm just kind of going in there and getting the seam squared up on each side. So all of that shifting you see side to side, that is just the quarter panel. It's not actually the trunk pan that I just went through and tightened down. And it's trying to even that out, right, and make sure the trunk is squared up. And then popping the roof loose, because the roof does pop down on the quarter panels. Initially I had it done incorrectly. I had the quarter panels on top of the roof, so that kind of made things a little wonky quarter panel wise. Now either way, with the trunk sitting on those quarters up there, it does kind of lock it in place. It forms around it and it traps it in there. It actually has kind of a snap function over the quarters. So here I'm going through and kind of getting everything floating. Now on these quarters and that spacer, there is a hard stop in there, and the quarters without a ton of manipulation don't really move. They kind of just snap into place. Now for better or for worse, that's essentially how I kept it and how it still is now. I haven't got around to welding it. Again, this is February. I'm doing all of this recording, and I did this work back in November, so there's a bit of a time discrepancy from what I did and what you see. But those quarters do lock in place, so that kind of gives me a width point on those quarters, right? So now it's kind of marking center points and trying to figure out, you know, the best way to do it. Again, at this point, I'm still fighting buying the laser level, so I tried this and I tried a couple things, and you know, I was close, but it wasn't good enough to actually trust the process at all. So I just go through and I bought a laser level. So I come back out here, and I've got this crappy Sharpie that doesn't really work, especially when everything's black. So I switched that out, and I've got this white marker. I cannot remember what it is, but it's almost like an oil type marker. So it wipes off easily, but it goes on any surface. And of course it's white, so I can see it anywhere. And I use that to mark over. That's what this marker is right here. And it marks a nice white line for me. And then I need to go through and I need to set that on essentially every single moving part that crosses through that center line. So like I said, the quarters lock into place, so I take that off of my measurement and I find the middle and I mark the middle. Now this kind of, right when I move that middle line, it'll move both quarter panels in that direction. So it kind of takes away my individual side movement, and it really just treats it as one piece at the end. Again, might not be the right way, but it was the way I did it. It made sense to me in the moment, and I went with it. And today I think it looks good. So I'm more than happy with it. Is it a Riddler award? No, it's definitely not perfect. But doing this for your first time, nothing's gonna be perfect. It's a learning process, and that's kind of what it is, right? I had more faith in these sheet metal parts to be kind of more accurate, right? I figured you would kind of just pop them in and they would be correct. And that is just not the case. You'll see that here pretty soon with that little rear deck cover. I can never remember what it's called, but it's essentially the bottom of the back window. And it had the lips on the edges bent, and that's enough to throw things out of whack, and a decent amount at that, right? It was good, created over 1/8 of an inch gap on that quarter, and actually it was probably close to 1/4 of an inch on that passenger side quarter panel. And when you start having issues like that across all of these parts, you end up having a lot of things out of whack, and that's going to be an issue. So if I ever do this again with another car, you know, I still think I did it correct, as in cutting everything off and starting from scratch. And that was because my inner structure was damaged. There was no other way to do it because I didn't have a good starting point. But each of these parts probably could have used a little more loving to put them in there correctly. But when you look at the car and it's all together, you can't really point out any issues. When it's all painted, I doubt anyone would be able to notice. Well, the average person 100% would not notice that I cut the car in half and rebuilt the back half. Now, your professionals, they'll probably be able to point out where I made mistakes. And, you know, that's the difference of years and years of practice. And see right here, I'm taking a hammer to it and getting it into the best that I can. And the one thing I wanted to show on this video is that I did put a lot of time and a lot of effort into trying to square this thing up. And I didn't stop at this video. It's something that I'm constantly doing. Didn't quite get as far as I'd hoped on this video, but that's because I took the extra time to measure a lot more than I thought I needed to. And with that, I don't think I'm done measuring fully, but I'm in a spot to where when I come back, I can start putting some tacks in some places and start, well, forcing things where they should be. A lot of it's actually really centered now. We'll see how well you can see these lasers. You can kind of see it. So all those little white marks are my center line marks. I'm not exactly perfect, but I'm so damn close. So damn close. So where I do have an issue, so you see these clamps here, I put them here because down here on both sides, I'm centered. So these are both equally centered. However, by the time I get up here, I'm off about 1/2 inch, which I'm guessing is this side needing to go in And I'm not entirely sure how I'm going to do that. I'm not entirely sure why it's not doing that. Maybe it's just the roof holding it, but the roof's centered too. So I'm not sure how I'm going to get that correct. I'm not sure where the roadblock is, and I gotta really figure that one out. However, I'm very happy with everything else. So before I had my friend tell me to use the laser level, I had measured side to side on the trunk, as you've seen. The video is not going to represent it, but it was a half hour. It's a half hour measuring, which paid off because, as you can tell on my white marks, I am centered. So cool. Now, in order for the laser to work, you probably can't see them in the video, but I do have white marks in here. So I lined the laser up to the front of the car and to the frame. So from here to the front of the car is centered, and then the laser just follows. So everything else should be centered. So the roof is centered. The bottom of the quarter here and here is centered. This is pretty damn close to centered. It's really only off by like a 16th. But here has got to be where I'm off. Maybe it's both sides. Both sides need pulled in. I don't know. I don't know. Makes me a little nervous, but it's also, I mean, yeah, it's a ½ inch, but I don't know. I'm tired. Don't forget to subscribe. Like the video, comment down below. It's a hell of a process. I don't even have the rear deck in the car at the moment because that's got to wiggle in there eventually. However, I want to get everything else tacked in place so that I can pull out this stupid inner structure, which at this point I don't even think is necessary. I don't think it's really doing anything anymore. I don't know that it was necessary in the first place. It was recommended. I'm glad I had it. It did add a little bit of comfort, but I really want to get it out of there and out of the way so I can start doing things in there. And yeah, the floor pan is going to be a big one too. I got to replace all this rust, all of that rust, all of that rust, all of that rust. Technically, I'm going to cut out these patch panels and I'm going to redo the back seat too. This one I don't think is that bad, but part of me wants to say screw it and replace it anyways. I'll find out. I'll clean it because, I mean, this little patch panel is $100. So if I can save $100, then, you know, I should save $100. That one clearly needs replaced. That one clearly needs replaced. That one clearly needs replaced. Damn holes, all right? Holes are not okay. We ain't doing this. Now, I've been going through off the scenes and trying to figure out my damn rims and tires and how I want to do that. I don't know if I've said it in the video, but I really want to do a wide body kit for my Chevelle. It's already a wide ass car, so yeah, I want to go a little bit wider. However, that's going to take some time to figure out. And I really need to dial that in, but that's so far down the road. That's probably not even stage one. Honestly, I don't even know if I'm going to do all the brakes on stage one because the second I go to disc brakes, my tiny ass front rims no longer fit. So I'm going to end it there. Thanks for following along.